In the case of Richard Ramirez, one chilling detail stood out: pentagrams, ominously scrawled across the scenes of his crimes. These five-pointed stars, often associated with the occult, were not just random doodles or acts of vandalism. They were deliberate, calculated marks left behind to send a message, both to investigators and to the public. The presence of these symbols immediately set his crimes apart from others, adding a layer of fear and mystery that gripped the city. Ramirez scrawled these symbols on walls, doors, and even on the bodies of his victims, using whatever he could find: lipstick, markers, or even the victim's own blood. The act was ritualistic, almost as if he was performing a dark ceremony at each scene. Sometimes he would carve the pentagram into the skin, leaving a permanent, horrifying mark that investigators would discover later. This was more than simple vandalism. It was his twisted signature, a message meant to terrify anyone who saw it. The pentagram became a symbol of his presence, a warning that the Night Stalker had been there. It was a psychological weapon, designed to instill dread in the hearts of both his victims and the wider community. As news of the pentagram spread, the city's anxiety grew. Headlines screamed about satanic symbols and ritualistic killings, fueling a wave of public panic. The media coverage only amplified the terror, making the pentagram not just a clue, but a symbol of the evil stalking Los Angeles. People began to see pentagrams everywhere, real or imagined, and fear took hold. For Los Angeles in 1985, these symbols transformed a criminal into a demonic legend. The city was already on edge, but the pentagrams gave Ramirez an almost supernatural reputation. Parents warned their children, neighbors watched each other with suspicion, and the sense of safety vanished overnight. Law enforcement saw the pentagrams as both a clue and a distraction, a glimpse into a mind obsessed with darkness, but also a potential misdirection. Investigators debated whether the symbols pointed to a deeper motive or were simply meant to confuse and frighten. Each new pentagram found at a crime scene deepened the mystery and urgency of the case. The pentagrams were the first public sign of a private obsession, a window into a philosophy of evil that would soon be revealed in his own words. They hinted at a darkness within Ramirez that went far beyond ordinary criminality, suggesting a man who saw himself as an agent of chaos, leaving behind not just victims, but a city haunted by his symbols. Richard Ramirez, born in El Paso, Texas in 1960, was the youngest of 5 children in a working-class Mexican-American family. His early years were marked by hardship and instability, growing up in a neighborhood where poverty and crime were part of daily life. Even as a child, Richard was quiet and withdrawn, often escaping into his own world to avoid the chaos at home. He grew up surrounded by violence and trauma. His father, a former police officer, was known for his temper and strict discipline, which often turned physical. The Ramirez household was a place of tension, and young Richard witnessed frequent arguments and outbursts that left a lasting impression on him. But perhaps the most profound influence came from his older cousin, Miguel, a Vietnam veteran. Miguel returned from the war deeply scarred, both physically and mentally, and he exposed Richard to stories and photographs of unspeakable violence. He even demonstrated deadly skills, showing Richard weapons and teaching him how to use them. These experiences blurred the line between reality and horror for the impressionable teenager. By the early 1980s, Ramirez had drifted to California, living on the fringes of society. He became addicted to drugs, particularly cocaine, and spent his nights wandering the streets of Los Angeles. What began as petty theft and burglary soon escalated into something far more sinister, as his need for thrills and power grew stronger. Between 1984 and 1985, he unleashed a reign of terror across Southern California. Ramirez targeted homes at random, breaking in under the cover of darkness. His attacks were shockingly brutal, leaving entire communities paralyzed with fear. No one felt safe, as he struck without warning or pattern. The press soon dubbed him the Night Stalker, a name that captured the terror he inspired. He became a phantom in the night, a shadowy figure who could be lurking outside any window. News reports and police warnings only heightened the sense of dread, as families double-locked their doors and waited anxiously for dawn. His victims came from all walks of life, men, women, and children, young and old, from different backgrounds and neighborhoods. Ramirez's methods were unpredictable and sadistic, making it impossible for police to anticipate his next move. The randomness of his violence deepened the city's fear, as anyone could be his next target. At several crime scenes, he left behind pentagrams, symbols of the occult, scrawled on walls or drawn in blood. These chilling marks only amplified his legend, fueling rumors that he was more than just a killer, but a servant of evil itself. Ramirez became the embodiment of dread, a living nightmare who haunted the city's collective imagination. His presence was felt everywhere, from the quietest suburbs to the busiest streets, as people looked over their shoulders and wondered if he might be watching. He was more than a killer. He was a phenomenon of fear, a dark legend whose crimes would leave a permanent scar on Los Angeles and the nation. When police finally closed in on Ramirez, they found a black notebook among his belongings. This diary wasn't a record of daily life. It was a window into a mind consumed by darkness and Satanism. The diary linked his crimes to his ideology, filled with satanic drawings, pentagrams, and violent fantasies. It provided context for his brutality, showing he saw himself as a soldier of Satan. For investigators, it was a revelation, proof that the pentagrams were more than a flourish. They were central to his identity. The diary helped solidify his psychological profile and motive. It was a chilling artifact, documenting the private thoughts of a man who brought horror to so many. Ramirez's diary was a chaotic scrapbook of satanic worship and violent declarations. Inverted pentagrams, Baphomet drawings, and phrases like, "I am the Night Stalker," filled the pages. He took pride in his murderous identity, showing no remorse, only celebration. Lyrics from heavy metal bands, especially AC/DC's Night Prowler, became his personal anthems. The diary included sketches of houses and street names, hinting at premeditation behind his attacks. Ramirez constructed an identity around evil, seeing himself as a mythical servant of darkness. His writings were self-affirmations, a way to bolster his persona. The diary was his sacred text, a testament to his complete surrender to the abyss. The symbols in Ramirez's diary were more than just strange markings. They were a language of rebellion and darkness, a secret code that only he truly understood. Each page was filled with cryptic drawings and ominous signs, as if he was building his own private universe, one that existed outside the boundaries of ordinary society. The inverted pentagram, drawn over and over, became his unmistakable signature. It was more than a symbol. It was a bold rejection of society's rules, a declaration of allegiance to forces most people fear. For Ramirez, it was a way to show the world that he had chosen a path of darkness, and he wanted everyone to know it. He filled the margins with the number 666, crude sketches of demons, and personal sigils, each one carefully crafted to represent power, protection, and his own twisted sense of identity. These weren't random doodles. They were deliberate, each symbol chosen for its meaning in his dark worldview. Every stroke of his pen was an act of devotion, a ritual in itself. The symbols reflected a genuine belief in the occult, a faith that gave him a sense of control and purpose. For Ramirez, these drawings were a way to connect with something greater, something he believed would grant him power over others. When investigators first examined the diary, they realized they were dealing with someone who saw himself as more than just a criminal. Ramirez believed he was a supernatural warrior, fighting for a cause that only he could understand. The symbols were clues to his mindset, revealing a man who saw himself as chosen, set apart from the rest of humanity. The diary's pages became a map of his fantasy world, a place where he was in control, powerful, and feared. Each symbol was a step deeper into his own mythology, a world where he made the rules and wielded dark power. Forensic experts and psychologists pored over the drawings, searching for meaning. Deciphering these symbols offered rare insight into his personal mythology and the twisted logic that drove his actions. Each page was a window into his mind, revealing the fantasies and obsessions that fueled his crimes. In the end, the diary's dark symbols mapped Ramirez's descent into darkness, chronicling his transformation from troubled youth to a man consumed by evil. The pages remain a chilling testament to the power of belief and the dangers of a mind lost to its own nightmares. Ramirez's diary wasn't a legal confession, but it was a psychological roadmap for investigators. It confirmed the satanic element was central to his identity, not just a shock tactic. The diary's themes helped connect cases that might have remained separate, unifying his crimes under one persona. Notes and sketches showed premeditation, countering any insanity defense. The diary revealed a thinking, planning predator, vital for prosecutors and profilers. It traced his transformation from petty criminal to the Night Stalker. More than evidence, it was a direct line into the mind of a killer. Ramirez's diary reveals profound narcissism. He saw himself as a force of nature, not just a criminal. He created and worshipped the Night Stalker persona, declaring his own legend. His writings show a total lack of empathy, celebrating violence as pleasure. Victims were props in his fantasy, not people. By embracing Satanism, he justified his actions, reframing murder as a holy war for evil. This cognitive restructuring allowed him to avoid guilt and see himself as righteous. The diary's chaos reflected his fractured mind, but its theme was clear: power through terror. Ramirez was not mindless. He consciously chose to become a predator and documented his transformation. Ramirez's reign ended on August 31, 1985, after a fingerprint finally gave police his identity. His mugshot was broadcast everywhere, and when he returned to Los Angeles, citizens recognized and captured him. The Night Stalker was brought down by the community he terrorized. His trial was a media spectacle, with the diary used to illustrate his mindset and motive. Ramirez was defiant, flashing a pentagram and shouting, "Hail Satan!" in court. In 1989, he was convicted of 13 murders and sentenced to death, showing no remorse. His capture brought relief to California, ending a chapter of terror. The city reclaimed its sense of safety, and the monster was finally caged. Richard Ramirez's case left a lasting mark, shattering the illusion of suburban safety. The Night Stalker taught a generation about vigilance and the importance of everyday precautions. His crimes pushed law enforcement to improve investigative techniques and interagency cooperation. The diary offered rare insight into the mind of a predator, helping profilers understand extreme violence. Ramirez's story endures in books and documentaries, a reminder of our deepest fears. But at its heart are the victims and their families, the true cost of his evil. Remembering them is vital, and knowledge is our best defense against darkness. Stay vigilant, stay informed, and never take safety for granted.